Well, good morning, and thank you all for joining us here this morning for what I think is a historic day. I'd first like to take this opportunity to thank my friend Premier Legault for joining us in Newfoundland and Labrador. Today we had the opportunity to have very high-level discussions about Churchill Falls, and I think it was important, the recognition of what that contract means for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. The deep sense of hurt that exists within the culture and fabric of Newfoundland and Labrador because of that contract. The injustice that is perceived throughout society of Newfoundland and Labrador because of that contract. We also, though, had the opportunity to discuss how valuable that asset is, how valuable hydroelectric capacity is in Newfoundland and Labrador, in Canada, and indeed the world right now during this time of energy disruption and the demand for clean, green energy. We discussed at a very high level many items, most significant of which was the importance of, well, one of the most significant of which, of course, was the importance of Indigenous engagement throughout any process that may develop in the future. We have come to a point where we would like to assemble teams to have high-level discussions about the art of the possible when it comes to existing contracts and future developments should they occur within Newfoundland and Labrador. And with that, I'll open up the mic to you, Premier Legault.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. D'abord, je voudrais dire que j'ai eu une très bonne rencontre avec le premier ministre Furey et on a convenu de commencer des pourparlers sur Churchill Falls et sur des projets futurs. Et on va, dans le cadre de ces discussions, parler d'avant 2041 et d'après 2041. On va aussi, dans le cadre des discussions, consulter les peuples autochtones en temps et lieu. Et je voudrais remercier mon ami Andrew pour l'accueil chaleureux que j'ai eu depuis hier ici à St. John's. So, first I would like to say a few words to citizens of Newfoundland and Labrador. I fully understand the frustration and the anger that you have, that you feel about the Churchill Falls contract. I think that this contract became a bad deal for Newfoundland and Labrador over time. And you are proud people like Quebecers. And I've been in business for a long time before politics, and I've learned that it's always better to have a win-win contract for the long term. If we want lasting and fruitful partnership, it's better that it be a good contract for both parties. Of course, we cannot rewrite the history, but we can shape the future together. And I had a good meeting with Premier Furey, and we agreed to hold high-level discussion between our teams to discuss the Churchill Falls contracts and future projects before 2041 and after 2041. It's important to say also that we agreed that we will consult Indigenous people for these projects. So I want Andrew to thank you very much for your warm welcome since yesterday. Thank you.
I'm sure there's...
Écoutez, pour l'instant, on veut laisser avoir des pourparlers à un haut niveau, puis on ne veut pas, je pense pour le bénéfice de pour le succès de ces discussions-là, de ne pas aller trop dans les détails pour l'instant.
Monsieur Legault, est-ce que message là, quand même
Oui.
très senti pour leur dire on vous comprend, tout ça. Est-ce que ça fait partie de la négociation que le Québec dise qu'ils comprennent la situation dans laquelle Terre-Neuve se trouve?
Ben oui, ben je pense que c'est important de dire aux gens de Terre-Neuve que on comprend, je comprends leur frustration. Le contrat qui a été signé pour 65 ans, aujourd'hui, c'est devenu un mauvais contrat pour Terre-Neuve. Puis on ne peut pas réécrire l'histoire, mais on peut essayer pour l'avenir de trouver des façons de travailler ensemble au bénéfice des deux pour avoir un résultat gagnant-gagnant. Donc, je pense que c'est important de reconnaître que je comprends la frustration des gens de Terre-Neuve.
Well, at this point, it's still very high-level talks about the art of the possible. I think it'd be premature to exclude anything at this point, but as you know, Patrick, we have worked very hard to solve the Muskrat Falls deal with respect to rate mitigation over the last 2 years, and I believe that puts us in a good position in terms of Newfoundland and Labrador's perspective.
Do you feel pressure from your population to get them a good contract? How is it for a...
Of course I do. I mean, I'm not going to do a sure. It's been a pressure that has existed within this office, within these walls of this legislature since the contract was signed. So incumbent in the nature and of the office is the pressure to try to redo this contract.
Do you think Premier Legault understands that pressure that you have
Well, certainly,
on your shoulders?
certainly he has. We had talked about the imbalance, the injustice, the perceived injustice, the real injustice, the fiscal injustice of the contract to date. And it is, as you know, we sell the electricity right now at 0.2 cent kilowatt hours. It's essentially free. I do think that Premier Legault understands the frustration that exists within Newfoundlanders and Labradorians as a result of that. Anyone who's lived in Newfoundland and Labrador, who has visited Newfoundland and Labrador, understands that every Newfoundlander and Labradorian has an educated opinion about the Churchill Falls contract. It's become a part of the fabric of who we are. So pressure, of course I feel pressure, but the pressure is to do the right thing, the responsible thing.
The opposition has called for a gesture of good faith from the Quebec government in going forward negotiations. Is that something you talked about a lot at all?
Pardon me, who did?
The opposition has called for sort of a gesture of good faith.
Well, I think it's a good sign. It's symbolic that the Premier of Quebec has come to Newfoundland and Labrador. I think that, to pick up on the last question, also shows that there is an understanding of the impact of this contract for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. I'm certainly not going to negotiate, and we're not going to negotiate in public. At this point, it's just very high-level discussions about the art of the possible between two teams, recognizing some of the ills of the past, but certainly looking towards the future opportunities that exist.
When we talk about the injustices and the ills of the past, I need to ask about the Innu Nation and
Sure.
Innu people more broadly. You mentioned consultation, but can you give a clearer perspective on exactly when and how the Innu Nation...
Well, first of all, as you know, we have a redress agreement with the Innu Nation. There is an IBA currently with the Innu Nation with respect to potential future developments. That's certainly something that we would honor, but I've had good conversations with Grand Chief Rich. I spoke with him before the Premier came. I promised to speak with him this afternoon, and I will. And I'm meeting with him in person on Monday. It is too early to determine, even if the scope or of possibilities is within the realm of a potential deal right now. So, but it will be done with proper and due consultation and consideration of existing agreements and potential to work together with our Indigenous partners moving forward.
Monsieur Legault, avez-vous parlé d'échéancier? Parce que avez-vous parlé d'échéancier pour la négociation? Parce que si vous ne réussissez pas à vous entendre, construire un barrage, vous l'avez dit vous-même, ça prend une quinzaine d'années. Donc, si on fait un calcul, ça vous laisse à peu près 3 ans pour réussir à vous entendre.
On n'a pas parlé d'échéancier, là, donc on va prendre le temps qu'il faut pour que ça soit un contrat gagnant-gagnant.
The compensation for the Innu Nation is only on one side of in terms of Newfoundland and Labrador's compensation for Churchill Falls at this point. There is active legal action in regards to Churchill Falls from Innu people, and I'm wondering, are you going to speak to Hydro-Québec or provide any sort of direction on that side of the coin in terms of dealing with the Innu Nation on those legal matters at this point?
It's important. Sorry.
Can you answer that in French?
Yeah, yeah. it's important for me and for Andrew to have a discussion with the new people and the indigenous people, and we'll do so together, and it's important for me. Donc, c'est important pour moi et pour le Premier ministre Furey d'avoir des consultations avec les peuples Inuits, mais en général les peuples autochtones aussi, à propos de ces discussions, concernant Churchill Falls avant 2041, après 2041, puis les autres projets qu'on va discuter.
But are you directing Hydro-Québec to actively resolve those legal matters at this point in time?
The people of Hydro-Québec, they talk also with indigenous people, and they try to solve these matters. Yeah.
Pensez-vous que c'est possible de signer une nouvelle entente sans un nouveau partenariat sur ces nouveaux projets comme de l'Isle? Est-ce possible de conclure un nouveau deal sans parler aussi de la construction de nouveaux barrages?
Ben, écoutez, ce qu'on dit, c'est qu'on veut regarder l'ensemble du projet de Churchill Falls avant, après 2041, mais aussi d'autres projets. Donc, ça fait partie des discussions.
Premier Legault, do you recognize, or the province of Quebec, do you recognize the current border of Labrador between Labrador and Quebec? And if not, or if there's any ambiguity there, can that impact negotiations anymore?
Okay, I don't want to get involved in this discussion. I know that lawyers are doing a great job with that, so, but I think it's not part of our discussion.
If I could just follow up briefly, you mentioned right off the top you had prepared a statement there, sort of speaking to the residents in
Right.
Labrador. Some might say, of course, you would say that not because you're here of your own volition, and you're here to, with the realization that the contract is coming to a close. Do you have, first of all, some might say that's a bit little too late, residents who, have misgivings about the contract. But also, do you see that any intent on reopening and renegotiating before 2041?
But I said it, that it will be part of the discussion to look at the prices before 2041. So it'll be part of the discussion. But of course, it's obvious that right now it became a bad deal for people here, this contract with Churchill Falls. So I think it's important to recognize that and to try to look together to have a win-win deal.
Vous le dites en français parce que la compensation, là, c'est nouveau cette semaine, là, que vous êtes ouvert à discuter de ça si vous entendez au-delà de 2041.
Ben, écoutez, d'abord, ce qu'on dit, c'est qu'on veut regarder après 2041, on veut regarder aussi d'autres projets et on est ouvert à regarder aussi avant 2041. Mais c'est un tout, puis pour l'instant, ben, ce sont des discussions.
Just to pick up on something, there's
Yeah.
a willingness, obviously, that the Premier is here to recognize the punitive nature of the contract towards Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. And we wouldn't be here today if there wasn't the potential to discuss the current state of that contract as it's applicable to Newfoundland and Labrador.
Premier Legault, there's been some talk about, the need for energy in Quebec. Do you feel like there's a sense of urgency here in negotiating this deal for yourself?
But of course, there's a need for more electricity, and there are potential projects. There's the future also of Churchill Falls after 2041. So, and we are already partners in Churchill Falls. Quebec owns 34%, so it's normal that we have discussion, and I'm trying, and I'm optimistic to find a win-win deal.
Mr. Legault, can you speak to the price of power in Quebec? I think the general assumption in Newfoundland and Labrador is what we receive for Churchill Falls power will go up in terms of price. How do you think that will affect people in Quebec in terms of what they pay for power at the end of the day?
Okay, first I think we have to put separate residential. So far in Quebec, what we promise is to follow the inflation. That's it, that's all. Even with a cap at 3%, because we have very high inflation right now in the last year. So for residential, there's no question about increasing tariffs. Regarding companies, but the game is changing.
En
En français, ben, concernant les tarifs au Québec, il n'est pas question d'augmenter les tarifs résidentiels de plus que l'inflation, puis même de plus que 3 là, étant donné l'inflation exceptionnellement élevée. Par contre, pour les entreprises, on a déjà annoncé qu'on va déposer un projet de loi cet automne avec la nouvelle réalité. Il faut revoir les tarifs aux entreprises.
Aussi en anglais concernant le sentiment, ici, ils ont un sentiment d'urgence de la part du Québec qui va manquer d'électricité. Est-ce que ça fait pas en sorte c'est plus difficile pour vous de négocier quand eux sentent qu'on a absolument besoin?
Ben, et ça ne sera pas une discussion qui va être facile, mais bon, il y a de l'électricité de disponible, il y a des projets de disponibles. Et ben oui, le Québec est un acheteur potentiel, donc on essaie de trouver un contrat qui soit gagnant-gagnant.
Premier Furey, did you talk about Hydro-Quebec's record profits and how much of that was based on Churchill Falls?
As I said at the outset, we talked about how valuable this asset is, valuable from a fiscal perspective and valuable from a societal perspective. So, of course, it's recognized, again, by, I would suggest, every Newfoundlander and Labradorian, how valuable this asset is. And I think, as you asked me the other day, Patrick, that those numbers reflect how important this asset is fiscally and from a social responsibility perspective.
And we have time for one last question.
Mr. Legault, you used the word bad deal. You said it was a bad deal, but Premier Furey said it was unjust. Do you agree that the contract was unjust?
But it became a bad deal. And I don't want to judge Mr. Smallwood or the people who signed this contract. But today, when you look at the price and when you look at the market price, it became a bad deal for Newfoundland, Labrador.
And I think people here will appreciate you saying that, but it's a different thing to say bad deal and unjust. Do you think the deal is unjust?
It's a bad deal.
One last question, folks.
Regarding the contentious nature that was discussed today, we know that there's clearly a united front, win-win. You both kind of have a good preference toward a new deal. Were there any issues that we haven't broached here that were contentious in today's meeting?
This was a very high-level discussion about how we even set the table for the art of the possible. And look, I know that all of you and everyone at home wants us to come out today with details. That's the nature of the news cycle. We don't have those details. And I'm not prepared to put those details in the public arena just yet. We need to know what the art of the possible is. And perhaps over the next weeks or months, it becomes clear that there is no possibility moving forward. But I think this is an important step, having the Premier here, to set that discussion, to set those tables, to have the teams come together and think about what is the possible, what's the art of the possible. And that's what is coming out of today's meeting, as I know that doesn't satisfy every headline or every specific that you need in your articles, but that is the reality. That's the responsible thing to do as a leader of Newfoundland and Labrador. It's the right thing to do, to not prejudge any outcomes, to not predetermine any outcomes, and allow the process to work so that we get the best deal for Newfoundland and Labrador, and there's a win-win situation overall.
All right, thank you all so much.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you very much.
Premier's the last.
Bonjour.